Press the big button.
And now we're on.
Yep. Wonderful.
Cool. Hello and welcome to the Deep Talk Beer podcast. My name's Sean. Joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boffman. Mr. Boffman, man, how are we?
Sean, I'm irked to be sitting on your left side instead of on your right. This feels all out of whack. The feng shui is completely just not flowing.
Yeah, well, as you said before, you're on the laptop, I'm on the iPad. This feels like a tech bro, Joe Rogan, sponsored by Spotify kind of podcast, except instead of being in a soundproof room, we're in a quite echoey room, as niece Kylie was telling me the other day when she was editing our podcast. And instead of drinking, let's say, Hennessy, we're drinking water out of Star Wars cups. And you brought a water bottle, and I've got a water bottle over there. Probably shouldn't have brought out the cup.
I don't remember my water bottle coming out of my bag, so I'm not even sure how it got there.
Is that yours?
Yeah, it looks like mine. Yeah, it's definitely mine. It's got the pock marks and the climbing chalk residue on it.
Yeah, whatever. So I was at a trivia night last night, and there were 2 questions related to WA, and 2 questions not like, what's the most northern point? It was like stuff that you had to know living there.
What was the question?
So I got one of them right, one of them wrong.
Oh, I'm literally tingling.
And I literally wanted Eddie Maguire phone a friend. And also the next table Googled every answer, and they got 28 out of 30. Doesn't that make you mad? And they won their $50 voucher. But we came third out of 3 teams.
It's so right. You didn't need $50 anyway.
Yeah, man.
What was the question?
So the first question was, how far... what's the time difference between here in Melbourne and Perth? And then 3 hours.
We're talking like daylight savings, or we're talking not daylight savings?
That's right, because right now...
Currently it's 3 hours, yeah.
3 hours, yeah. And that's the thing, because obviously daylight savings will throw it off. We said 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
I was 84% sure on that one.
Yeah.
And the second one was, what do people in Perth refer to a cool breeze on a hot summer's day? And I'm like, what is it, like fucking mullet flapper or something?
No, it's the Fremantle Doctor. It's the Fremantle Doctor.
That's cooked.
Yeah,
man.
Alternatively, just the doctor. Like, has the doctor come to visit today? Yeah,
because they paid the doctor or Fremantle Doctor.
Yeah. It's lovely. It's lovely when it comes, because it comes in at like different times. It's not like a breeze. It's like the breeze that comes from like the south.
Does it happen every day?
Of the city? Yeah, every day. Like it can start as early as like 12 or 1, which is really annoying, because the basketball court that I would play basketball at was in this suburb called Mosman Park, and it's like not right on the coast, but it's like maybe like 300-400 meters from the coast. And when the doctor comes in, it gets real windy on the basketball court, and you're kind of like, well, this has ruined my session. But on a 35-degree summer's day, when it comes in and you're at the beach, you're like, wonderful.
So is it literally like night and day? Like you'll be 35 degrees, muggy, and then after the doctor, you're cool, have to put pants on?
No, Perth doesn't really get muggy. It doesn't really get muggy. It just be hot, and it'll come in and you'll be like, oh, that's a nice breeze. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. Just obviously, that's the sort of nuance that we offer on this podcast, is that it's not just good or bad. It's dependent on context, time and place, activity, attire.
All right.
We like to go deep. That's why it's called the Deep 2.
There's 2 of us. We go deep. It also happens to be the least efficient shot that Josh Smith popularised. So on that topic, what a beautiful segue. You were playing basketball, I think you told me a little while back, at Mossman Park or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And some dude, you went up for a jump shot, and in this 2-on-2, he decided to take a take foul so you can take it from the side out. And in taking that take foul, you said, okay, well, he's going to foul me. I'll go out for a shot because I'm playing with refs and a whistle and a crowd.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's so similar to Jokic versus Markieff Morris.
My first reaction when I saw Jokic and Markieff on the court together, I was like, I swear I've lived that somewhere.
What were now, by the time this podcast comes out, this will be a couple of days old, but we have to talk about it because Jokic has been fined 1 game, Markieff Morris has been fined $50,000, and Jimmy Butler has been fined $30,000. But what were your first initial thoughts when you saw that video of Jokic and Markieff?
For anyone who hasn't seen it, go and watch it right now. Just get into your fucking browser and go.
It's the
Jokic
best.
Morris. It literally is one of the most insane things.
I'll tell you what, if you type in Jokic Morris with Denver Nuggets, No Glove will come up because, man, I've been smacking the SEOs with these 3 words right now.
Huge. That's what the grind is all about. So Morris, Jokic bring the ball up the court. Morris hits him with like a pretty hard take foul, just so like stop the break. And then walks away, and Jokic just rumbles up behind him and fully slams his shoulder like into Morris's back, decks him. Morris goes down, stays down. My first thought was, holy shit, Jokic is like 270 pounds. That's a lot of there's a lot of man. Yeah, there's a lot of man to get hit in the square of the back when you're like not expecting it. Obviously, Morris is a pretty like on the short list of dudes who would get hit and then like not immediately get up and retaliate. He's like, he's way down the bottom.
He stayed down for a while. They brought the stretcher out. He valiantly stood up.
Good on him. Good on you, Markieff. Good on you. Thanks for your service. It's pretty insane. It's one of the more insane like examples of just like a player like losing his cool that we've seen in recent years. I'm trying to think about something that was comparable, and my mind is going back to the playoffs last season when Jokic just swiped down on Campaign's face. That obviously wasn't as bad as this, but that was another example of him just like losing his temper and just getting out of control. It's wild.
Yeah. I actually immediately thought of the Campaign thing as well, and I think there's a big difference because the Nuggets really needed a kick in the ass against the Suns in that series, and like you were going to win regardless. But Jokic was playing really well. The team was sort of getting somewhere, started to make their shots after 4 games. And just needed to try harder, like go for more offensive rebounds, go for more rebounds as a whole. And sometimes when you've got a power forward like Aaron Gordon who's good at everything but maybe not the greatest rebounder, you do need someone like that. So I think that foul when he went to swipe down on the ball was very much like, hey, let's fucking get moving. Then obviously he got ejected. And,
obviously
you're not going to win.
He just hit Campaign in the face first.
Yeah, it was on the way. But this wasn't sending a message. Like the Nuggets were comfortably ahead. The game was over. We had entered garbage time. There was like 2 minutes 39 seconds left. Markieff Morris, he did the wrong thing. Like he gave the dirty foul with garbage time remaining. Right? Yeah. So it's Markieff Morris's fault for doing it first, because if you look at it again, he's hip and shouldered him, he's buckled his knee, and when you like, we've all gotten angry, we've all seen red, and it often happens when you get scared. Like that's usually why people get angry when we're playing sports and stuff. It's like, because maybe like, oh man, did I just break my knee? Right? So you've gone from, hopefully that toot doesn't come up on the pod, you've gone from a dude who's just hip and shouldered you while you're in midair. You're a big dude, like you said, and his knee sort of quivered. I reckon Jokic was like, shit, have I just been like stunned, Just like when Patrick Beverley dove on Russell Westbrook. And you remember when...
And Westbrook got up and immediately was
like, trying, like if he could run, he might have just ripped Pat Bev's head off right then and there. I think this was the same sort of scared, and then he obviously is a big fella.
See, but I kind of disagree, because I think at this point it's Jokic's track record. Like where he's kind of stacking
a Markieff's the Morris
No. Well, I'm not. There's space in the debate for Jokic is building himself a track record, and the Morris twins are absolute fucking goons who should not be taken seriously or like looked at as a victim, at all. Like that's not where this is going. But Jokic is kind of building a track record for like losing his cool a little bit, which is not something that you necessarily want from your like star player. Because the way that he loses his cool is kind of like not cool. He's not like I don't view it as like lighting a fire. I view it as like you got to control yourself a little bit better. Like you're up, it's garbage time. You just got a hard foul. Walk away. You're winning.
Yeah.
You've won the game. It's done. Sub out. Go sit on the bench. Next time you play the Heat, Hunt Morris on a switch.
November 29th.
Hunt Morris on a switch every time. Bury his ass in the basket.
He's not going to be playing.
Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We do need to then talk about Jokic's brothers making a Twitter account called the Jokic Brothers, just so that they could tweet at Marcus and Markieff Morris, and then get into like a bit of a a bit of a Twitter spat.
The Jokic brothers, which I would recommend everyone follow, is following one account. It's Jamal Murray. How fucking wholesome is that? Yes, Jokic brothers, these dudes didn't have Twitter. They made Twitter. They text Mike Singer at the Denver Post and said, "This is real. Take this seriously." And then Mike Singer obviously helped it go viral. Because it looked very much like a burner. Following one account, no image, no profile picture. Yeah. But you don't fuck around when you're trying to start Twitter beef. And they went in. They obviously said, "Look, Keith did it first," and then Markieff Morris, please shut up. He goes, he replies twice, and then says, "Mama told me not to talk on social media, so I'm gonna stop." It's don't say that the third reply. Yeah. Maybe first, maybe don't.
No, you either don't. If you want to pull out the "Mama told me don't," then don't.
Don't start.
Don't do it.
Don't poke
otherwise, I'll tell Mama, and she'll be like, "Damn, you're talking on social media." The thing that got me with that whole exchange is that part of his reply was Marcus Morris's reply to Jokic brothers was. He's like, "Oh, I would never hit someone when they're facing away from me. I guess we're just built different." And then I was just racing through my mind all of the dirty stuff that you've done. I guess
Luka.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't hit someone when they're walking away from you, but I guess you just leave your foot in under Luka every time he jumps, every single time. I guess you just elbow into the back of the neck whenever you can. You're absolutely not a victim, and you are absolutely not someone who's I'm real tough. I play it straight. I would have hit him when he's looking at me. No, you're one of the dirtiest. Yeah, you're one of the dirtiest. One of the dirtiest players in the league. But I guess it's really just a testament to the human capacity for cognitive dissonance. How they can operate in this realm that is so obvious to everybody else what exactly the Morris twins are. But for them, they're nah, we build different. It's all right, well, sick. The human brain, evolutionarily, wonderful. That's just, you got to give it up for the neurons there.
But everything you just said about Marcus says, hit a dude while he's turned around. Markieff did that foul and immediately looked away. And I really like what Chuck said on Inside the NBA, where he goes, if you're going to hit someone like that, don't turn your back on them, because they're going to hit you whichever way you're facing. Yeah. Right? So by him turning his back, he now gets the benefit of the doubt, and all these Heat fans are up in arms. It's quite funny. I obviously follow a few people on Nuggets Twitter, and then they're all all these Heat dudes are in their DMs, and everyone's like, "This is interesting. All these Heat dudes are in our DMs trying to start a fight," just like Markieff Morris did.
Yeah.
But going back to the Jokic part of it, and how Jokic is building up a little bit of would you say a villain attitude?
I don't know that it's conscious. I don't view it as consciously villainous. I kind of look at it as a bit petulant. That it's more childlike, and he needs to channel his. If you're a villain, channel it by walking around the stadium and waving to the crowd or blowing kisses or taunting your opponent. That's villainous. But lashing out in a way that is worthy of an ejection is not very villainous, unless it's you just straight up clock someone in the face, which obviously isn't going to happen. I think decking, that's the kind of behavior that the under 15s footy boys do.
Yeah.
You just deck someone when they're not looking. I don't view it as villainous. I view it as he needs to actually get this behavior under control before it.
I agree, because if you had just looked at it okay, campaign incident, this incident, and he's had a few things, but when he was a rookie and when he was a second year and when he was really coming into the league, one of his biggest problems was if he and as soon as he took over as a starting job and he was just becoming this center that we know that he is today, he would come in and he would do all these amazing things on offense, but let's say every third play didn't go his way and maybe there was a non-call or something, he would be he would be running back a half court talking to the ref and be stuff this, and just smack the ball.
Just swat.
And he might have been the first dude to ever take a take foul, even when he's got 4 defenders at the rim, right? So he was taking all these take fouls just to be call out a foul and then just smack someone. So he's got and he's completely erased that from his game. He, the first year he became an All-NBA center was the first year he stopped doing those stupid fouls. So he's got the reputation as a young player making these stupid fouls when he's upset, and now as a retaliation. And Haley O'Shaughnessy, of spinsters said, look, there is maybe this villain thing building around Nikola Jokic, but it's going to be really hard to build a villain narrative around a guy whose nickname is the Big Honey.
The Big Honey.
But yeah, I don't mind it because of the way he plays and because of how he's just so overpowering against, let's say, every single person in the whole entire league, right? And just the way he is. And now the Nuggets aren't going to win anything this year because they're not healthy. And with Michael Porter Jr., who we'll talk about later, they're really not healthy. This is literally Jokic and a bunch of non-shooters and Will Barton surrounding him. Just him trying to get 30-point triple-doubles every single night. And he'll come into your stadium, he'll fuck your wife, and he'll score 30 points on your center.
I hope he doesn't do that because he's married with a newborn child.
He is, actually.
Come on.
I don't mind it, but yeah, there has to be a better way to go about the villain narrative. And what do you do next year when your team's fully healthy and you're expected to win a title?
I just think you want to be the villain, do a hard foul on someone at the rim. Get a flagrant one foul because you go for someone's head when they try and dunk on you or whatever. I love that today in the Grizzlies Charlotte game. I think it was Miles Bridges. Jaren Jackson was going to have a layup on the fast break. Miles Bridges came in and just blocked the shit out of him and crunched Jaren's head. Yeah. It didn't get called a foul, but then Miles Bridges was blowing kisses to the crowd after. That's the kind of thing you do. Don't
Miles Bridges is good at that.
Make it within the context of the basketball game. Yeah. Don't lash out completely in a completely extracurricular manner.
Because otherwise you Bill Laimbeer.
Well, yeah. Otherwise you Bill Laimbeer. You run out of tests. You're involving areas. There's plenty of scope for a basketball player to be a thug. Respects to John Beeline, or a villain, or a hard man, or whatever it is in the context. Yeah, a goon in the context of the actual game of basketball. Plenty of scope for it. That's what the whole legacy of the 80s and the 90s is built on. The Detroit teams, the Bulls, the Knicks. It's all you can't go into the paint. Just do something like that. Don't lash out in that way. Let's take this opportunity to move on to his teammate Michael Porter Jr., who you referenced.
The depth, the deep two. God, that's a mouthful. Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as two members of the Four Man Weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the pack of basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have two male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favourite podcasting app and give us a spin.
Previously,
give me his numbers.
Now
what does the FG start?
Yeah, what is it? Well, I tell you what, there's a 2, there's a 3. I'm not seeing a 4 anywhere. Someone get me a 4 at the side of this number. He's averaging a scintillating 9.9 points per game on 36 from the floor and 21 from the arc. Now, I've got a thing where it's your points per game shouldn't be lower than your average annual salary. Obviously within reason. LeBron's getting paid $47 million, so we're not saying he has to average 50.
Draymond isn't going to score.
What I'm saying is that averaging 9.9 points a game when you're getting paid $32 million a year.
No, he's not.
Yeah, well, not this year, but next year. You just signed a 5-year, $172 million max deal.
Yeah, are we including bonuses?
Bonuses for what? Your back not disintegrating?
We'll talk about that in a minute. You go.
Well, my point is basically that's bad.
Yeah, that is bad.
If your points per game is less than 1/3 of your average, or your average, the millions that you're getting paid, that's bad.
So he has played absolute dog water through 9 games. I very much believe he's just going to get better in. The ball's just eventually going to go in the basket, because even if you look at standard distribution, he's missing more shots than would be, he's below average, and he's not going to shoot 54% from 3 like he did down the end of last year, right? He will get better. You can't be this bad forever, right? But what really concerns me, and I wrote about this for nuglove.com right after he signed the extension, is that in his contract, there was all these bonuses for making an All-NBA team, an All-Star team, or I think it was All-Defensive, which was quite funny. But, All-Star and All-NBA, that's the achievable ones for him. So hit that 172, dips down to about 140-something if he doesn't make one of those teams, which is fine. But I was like, look at Joel Embiid's contract extension when he finished his rookie deal, a dude who is much more of an injury risk and sat out 2 years, the first 2 years of his career, not just one. He was an MVP candidate and was going to be one, and they were able to put in, I think it's Exhibit 3 clauses, where it's like, if you don't play this many, either it's games or minutes, or like miss this many games, or re-aggravate a specific part of your body, you're going to miss out on $10 million, say, and all this stuff.
Yeah, but that's not how it works, though.
But there's none of that.
But that's not how I think the protection is like, we can cut you with no, we won't owe you the money basically if you can't play, which only really covers you if the injury is bad enough that you just had to cut him. It's not like if you only play 30 games in a season, your cap number drops to 15 million, and then we can use that extra 15 million to like bring in a different player or whatever. Like you're right. It only financially protects you if the absolute worst case happens to the player on the court, in which case you're fucked, because you'd rather have, I mean, obviously you don't want Joel Embiid to get his leg amputated and you're still paying him $30 million a year. That's the worst case scenario. But the second worst case scenario is that he gets his leg amputated and you don't have to pay him, but you still don't have him. So,
but in terms of disaster potential, like let's just say right now, MPJ's career is done. MPJ isn't Joel Embiid, and like, you're not building your whole franchise around him. For Denver's point of view, you've still got these two dudes that you can build around. And I'm not saying like, the sky is falling, even though I just said the sky is falling. It's just like, there's nothing in there to protect you, and you've locked up these 3 max contracts. He's re-aggravated the back injury, which is the reason why he didn't play his first year, and the reason why he was quite turd down the end of that Phoenix Suns series.
Quite turd.
Because he re-injured his back in
he
that
was.
Phoenix Suns series.
He couldn't move in at the end of that, and Chris Paul was looking for him every single time. And if you're, obviously he's never going to be an amazing defender, but if you're a 6'9", combo forward, a 6 foot point guard can't be switching onto you consciously every time and just getting whatever he wants, even if it's Chris Paul. You move your feet, you get your arm up, you contest. And he wasn't doing that. I think we've been saying this whole time, this season is a complete wash for the Nuggets. It doesn't really matter what happens. The way that their team is built, the way that their contracts are structured, it's all from next year. They've got all of their young dudes, all their important pieces locked up. This season, they weren't going to win a chip anyway without Jamal. They're not going to win a chip whether Porter Jr. is averaging 25 or whether he's averaging 9.9, whether he's on the court or off. But it is concerning just because you do need him to be healthy next year. And if this is a recurring thing where he injures himself, sits out an indeterminate amount of time, which is what there's no timetable for his return at the moment. Obviously, you have to kind of come back and get him warmed up again. It takes 10 games for him to get back into game shape or find his form or whatever. When you're a contender, as they will be next year, you don't necessarily have 10 games to spare. Because if it happens in the playoffs and he's turd like he was in the playoffs last year, then it's like, well, you don't get 10 games. You get 7 games. You might only get 4 games. So I think it's obviously, pump the brakes, no overreaction, but it is a bit of a concern, like long term. Obviously, you want to really be able to like lock everyone in and say, like, I can rely on this guy to be there. Availability is the best ability. It's not, but it is important.
Tristan Thompson fan over here.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's move on to the next point of business, which is an article that came out around about a week ago about Rob Sarver, I'll just say owner, I won't add an adjective, of the Phoenix Suns, who is currently being investigated by the NBA following a report from Baxter Holmes of ESPN. Now, for those of you who've been listening to this podcast, we talked a couple of weeks ago about the sort of the preparation that Rob Sarver and his legal team did 3 weeks before this article came out saying, hey, an article's coming out, it's going to say some bad stuff. It's all not true. And it's like, whoa. I mean, no one was paying attention to it until you said that. Yeah. It's just like, hey, don't mention the fact I got a pimple on my nose for this rest of this party, Dante. So obviously, I would say to people, read this article. We're not going to do it any justice by reading the excerpts because a lot of it is scathing, and there's some big words in there. The general gist is, and you never want to say general gist with something so serious as this, but racism and misogyny from Robert Sarver, that has been going on for the whole entire time he's been in his role, which is around the Steve Nash era.
Yeah, I think it's 2003.
Yeah. And so, as a Phoenix Suns fan, Dante, what did you think when you read this article?
Well, I thought the article was really interesting because Baxter Holmes, you know, people might know him from doing other really good long form work before. It's a tome, like it's like a half an hour read. He was very elucidating of the process of writing the story. It wasn't just here's a story. He described how Robert Sarver had basically contracted a legal team that had sent like 4 separate letters to ESPN basically saying like cease and desist or denying, and he's used excerpts from the letters in there. So he'll be like, 2 anonymous staff members from 2010 said that like Robert Sarver like locked them in the room and like called them racial slurs. And then he'll include, you know, like the excerpt from the letter that Sarver's legal team sent to ESPN, where Sarver's like, you know, like I categorically deny like this incident, and he's gone through in these letters and responded to like heaps and heaps of the incidents, and it's effectively just him saying through his lawyers that's not true, that didn't happen. But Holmes is so he's so consistent and he's so broad in his application of these stories. They come from so many different departments over such a different period of time. They come from like interns, marketing, sales. It comes from the executive level. It comes from like players. He obviously had a conversation with Earl Watson, who, you know, the erstwhile Phoenix Suns head coach. He of the legendary getting fired 3 games into the season.
In retrospect.
Retrospectively, there's a bit of a story behind that. You know, there's so many people coming forward in this article, anonymously or not, basically saying that over a 20-year period, this person's been doing this, this, and this. The stories are all thematically consistent, that maybe Bob Sarver is not one of the good guys of the NBA, which we already knew. Everyone already knew that.
It's not like this is the first time he's hit campaign in a playoff game.
No, exactly. It's not like, like the track record is well and truly built. And I think it's pretty telling that the only defense other than that didn't happen, that Sarver really mounts is where he's like, oh, like, you know, that definitely did happen, but like everyone took it as a joke. Or like I didn't mean any offense by it. I didn't mean any, you know, harm by it.
Essentially saying what? The N-word's offensive?
There's this wild fucking passage in there where one of the executive level guys recalls like being at like a press conference or like something where he's on stage in a room of people, and Robert Sarver dacked him.
I was going to bring this one up.
He literally, Robert Sarver's like 55, 60, like he's an adult, and this was like 10 years ago, and he just dacked this grown man, pulled his pants down. And in the letters, he's addressed the story and been like, you know, at the time everyone took it as a joke, like everyone in the room laughed and reacted. It's like, of course everyone in the room laughed and reacted. You're the boss.
So awkward.
You're the boss. What are you gonna do? What's you know, like what's Tim gonna do when you're the boss and you're doing that? He's gonna be like, that's hilarious.
Yep.
And he's just there like, I really got him. Yeah. Really got him. There's a word for that where I come from, and that's called workplace harassment.
So with the article, with what ESPN does with all their big articles, they'll usually get Zach Lowe, croak him out on his old chair and just say, hey, let's talk to you all through this article, talk through the details, maybe we can learn a couple of extra things, but not too many extra things because we still want to get the page views. And Baxter Holmes went on, and I think he summarised it really well. Did you listen to this pod?
No, I haven't listened to it.
I think he, like, as you know, with these ESPN retellings of stories, a lot of it is like 95% will just be like, oh, I did this, but hold on for the little end bit, read the book. He said this really good thing where he summed up everything that's happened with Robert Sarver, and he said, like, he's just an extremely awkward man who has the money to buy friends and act like one of the boys. And in acting like one of the boys, he happens to be very sexist and misogynistic and racist.
And crosses the line.
Crosses the line. So, and he said that not to excuse him, but like this is why he does these things from Baxter's point of view. Maybe he says the N-word because he truly is racist. Maybe he says the N-word because he thinks people will laugh at him and find it funny. It's either way, it's not on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're a 55-year-old man and you think you're saying, you're using racial slurs because you think it's funny. Well, that's called racism.
Yeah.
There was one, his wife also sent intimidating text messages to like staff members at the Suns
after the
article came out, which she's confirmed, and she said that she was just looking to clarify.
That's fucked.
But she was kind of implicated in it as not in a I shouldn't say implicated. She was mentioned in the story that there's this story of like Robert Sarver, like, getting photos of her in a bikini and like passing it around to the staff members and talking about how she'd go down on him and like perform sex acts on him, which is pretty wild. I don't really want to hear about that from my boss. Now I'm thinking about that, and that's terrible. I definitely don't want to hear about that. Then his response to that story, because obviously he's got the letters, he's responding to everything. He said, and this is how you know that's complete bullshit, because what the fuck, the mental gymnastics that you have to go through to like believe that what I'm about to say is actually true is just staggering. He claimed that he did pass around a photo of his wife. He didn't talk about anything sexual. The photo of his wife he gave to the sales team and said, this organization reached out to me and sent my wife some bikinis
with
the Phoenix Suns logo on it. If you wanted to stock it in the Suns store, here's what it looks like. Okay, a few things. First of all, what organization is like reaching out to you to send you bikinis? Second of all, if that was true, why did you think that the best way for you to convey to the sales team these bikinis exist wasn't just to forward the bikinis to the sales team or to take a photo of the bikini and say to the sales team, here's the bikini? Why did you think that it was appropriate to take a photo of your wife in a presumably compromising position, because lots of people have been scarred by this experience, the people that were telling the story, and then bring it into the office and then show the sales team? Couple of steps in there that don't really add up, which if one of his defenses is a lie, is obviously a lie, which a couple of them obviously are, then it's not a big jump to say that most of them are lies. Yeah. Especially from someone who is a documented arsehole anyway. The thing that I am kind of disappointed about is I don't know where this goes, because in the NFL...
Can I butt in?
Yeah,
there?
please.
Just, on that last point, and then definitely let's talk about where it's coming from here. But you talk about the mental gymnastics, and it reminds me a lot about what Markieff Morris' mother said, which is don't show photos of your wife in bikini in a work event. So with the future, like, does he get fired?
Well, the two things that come to mind is the NFL's Carolina Panthers. The NFL basically compelled their owner to sell the team after it was revealed that he was a massive racist. And then obviously the Donald Sterling thing with the Clippers, the NBA compelled him to sell the team. Both of those kind of had like a gotcha moment. Obviously Donald Sterling had the tapes. With Jerry Richardson, the Panthers owner, there was like a big like press furore with actual examples and people coming forward and testifying. Whereas this is just like the only people that are named is like maybe one or two ex-staff members, a player, like a couple of players, and then like Earl Watson. There's no tape, there's no like proof. So I don't know what the NBA could do if they wanted to like get him out of there. And it then asks an interesting question, because he's probably not, in terms of where the NBA is at socially, he's probably not the worst owner, because the owner of the Timberwolves, the owner of the Blazers, the owners of the fucking Magic was like Donald Trump's education secretary, Betsy DeVos. So if he's the seventh most despicable person owning an NBA team. And this has come out, and the NBA says, we got to get him out of here. It's too bad for business. What kind of precedent does that set for the 1 through 6 most despicable owners? And is it sending the message of saying, we're okay with you being despicable and socially against everything that we stand for? Not only socially against it, but your business and your political interests are actively working against what we stand for as a league. Just be quietly racist and be quietly sexist. Don't get caught. Don't let it get to the media. Is that what you're saying by making an example of Robert Sarver? And if it is, they're not going to do it. The NBA is not going to step in. And he's obviously an egomaniac. So he's not going to sell. Because why would you sell... when you're
one of the boys for
why would
last
you
15 years.
Why would you sell now when the team's finally good? You're making more money than you ever have.
And he won't, because like with the Donald Sterling thing, there was a gotcha moment. And let's say the gotcha moment for this one was who was the coach again? Earl Watson. Let's say that was the gotcha moment because it was a pretty horrible thing to say. Shouldn't that be it? But no, he's just come out and just categorically denied it.
The thing is, like, Sterling can't deny it because he's on tape. Richardson, there was enough people coming out and saying the exact same thing. It kind of, obviously, like, you believe Earl Watson because it's like, why would Earl Watson, be...
He's not going to get fired.
The story that Earl Watson told was basically like that Sarver came into the locker room after a win, and a player, one of the black players on the team, had said something to him, which involved, like, said something to another player.
It was Draymond Green.
It was Draymond Green, which had the N-word in it. And Sarver comes into the team locker room after the game and says the same thing to Watson and, like, repeats the story but uses the slur. And Watson basically says, you can't say that. They get into, they come to loggerheads. They get into an altercation. And then... The start of the season when Watson got fired after 3 games, despite the fact that we lost every game by like 50 points, was the reason. Now we know that the reason why he got fired is because there was an issue that Sarver had in negotiating a contract with Clutch. We love Clutch, who were representing Earl Watson, and Sarver had gotten into a bit of a beef with Rich Paul, who was, obviously is the head of Clutch. And Sarver basically gave Watson an ultimatum and said, you've got 1 week to change your representation, otherwise I'm firing you. And Watson said, fuck off. I'm not like gonna put myself in this position where I'm your slave and you can tell me how to basically carry out my business as a human being. And so the team was shit. He got fired. He got kicked. We got no reason to not believe Earl Watson in any of this stuff because it all fits. Yeah, and he would know. Yeah. He would know, but it's not like the Sterling thing or the Richardson thing, because essentially when you boil it down, it's Earl Watson saying this happened and Robert Sarver saying this happened, it didn't happen, and the NBA can't step in and say, well, Earl Watson said it. Yeah. We got to let you go. That's not how it's going to work, unfortunately, because we're talking about the Suns would probably sell for $2 billion. Yeah. Is probably how much we'd be talking about.
And so, like, Donald Sterling still made plenty of money off.
Donald Sterling, the Clippers when they sold was a record. Yeah. It was the record sale that Steve Ballmer. I think it was like $2.5 million, and that was like 7 years ago. So you think about what they'd be worth now.
So as we said at the start, please read the article. It's a good article. As you said at the start as well, it's a tome.
It is a tome, yeah. So
take half an hour, sit
make
in the
a
hammock.
Cuppa.
We'll move on to, just to wrap up, we'll talk about something we're seeing on the court. Enough news for now.
Hey, at 12 Don Yang. Do you like hearing the down low on all your NBA and basketball content?
Hey, at Will Conkin on Instagram and Twitter. Don't you mean the lowdown on NBA and basketball content?
No, I mean the down low, because that's our show, The Down Low,
where we give you the lowdown on everything NBA.
Check out The Down Low NBA on all your podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple, or even Google Podcasts.
Google has podcasts?
Yeah, I didn't even know that either. But now you know, so go and get it in your ears.
And I'll start off.
Good news though. I love when we can chat about the good guys of the NBA. We've got the Morris brothers. We've got Bob Sarver. Everyone. We've got Michael Porter Jr. Everyone's favorite anti-vaxxer.
Oh man, there's a lot of people in the news. We were going to say the S word, but he's still. Something I want to talk about is the Golden State Warriors. Shock and awe. I'm wearing the 2008 opening night shirt.
Whoa. That is retro. I'll
Some-
tell you what, we believe. We
Some
believe.
idiot on eBay gave it to me for $20.
Fool.
So I'm scared about the return of James Wiseman because I wonder where he fits in. And last year he was gifted minutes and it didn't go well. Yes, he was a rookie. Yes, he's not supposed to be good. How many games did he play in college? Whoa, and he's played more games in the NBA. There's all that stuff. But the thing is, this year Steve Kerr has said, like, yes, last year I gifted minutes to people who might not have deserved them. But this year I'm going to play the vets. I'm going to play Otto Porter Jr. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I'm really just going to come in and win as many games as possible. And so far we've seen that because Kuminga played his first ever first quarter minutes last game. And that was because Otto Porter Jr. was resting and Steve Kerr just gave him a look. Didn't go too well, scored 1 point, right? But that's, he's a rookie. He's not supposed to be very good. Moses Moody, one of the more NBA-ready rookies, has been playing spot minutes in garbage time or nearly garbage time. Today, actually played in the second quarter. Again, it was a beautiful Dante game. He made one mistake, but that might be his first mistake of the whole entire...
He's going to be good. I called it on opening night. He's going to be extremely good.
He's going to be extremely good. I wish he would be a little bit better now, but that's fine because Gary Payton II is all of a sudden a rim-rolling 6'2" man. But I'm going to work on an article on that coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Whoa, that's what we call a plug.
Deeptree.com, it's that simple. But so when James Wiseman comes back, well, what does Steve Kerr do? Because he's found success with Draymond at the 5. Now that's how you close games. And he's been starting the game with Kevon Looney at the start of the first and second halves. Today against Minnesota, Kevon Looney actually stayed in for a lot of the game, and he matched up well against Kat and Naz Reid and Jared Vanderbilt actually. And he finished the game with 11 and 14, like real tough rebounds. It was also because Draymond got injured in the second half and had to leave. So, like, do you just cut out Kevon Looney's minutes and give it to Big Jim, even though Big Jim might not be as good at protecting the rim as Kevon Looney right now, but then hoping that, of course, he better be one day, right? But then Kevon Looney's only playing 14 minutes a game or something like that because he's just getting the Keith Bogans at the start of the half. So is Big Jim just going to be a token starting center, just like Andrew Bogut was? Is that development, or is that just, hey, we want to put him out there and so he's actually wearing the jersey and playing the games? Like, Kuminga and Moody are playing in the J League. Why doesn't Big Jim play in the J League? And it's like, we've got a lot of players. Otto Porter Jr. was playing 5 the other day. It was awesome. And when the matchup lets us do it, who's the awesome dude? Juan Toscano Anderson. He can play the 5 like mighty fine. It's like we have so many great options there. Comes a little bit back to don't draft centers unless they're superstars. But like, what happens here? Like, is this going to be the end of Kevon Looney when Big Jim comes back, or is he going to like split his minutes with Kevon, or is he going to play like more? Like, and how does he earn them from there?
I'd be very surprised if he came in and had any substantial role, probably for between now and halfway through the season, because Warriors are 10-1. 10-1.
No one thought they would be 9-1.
Yeah. Proving everyone wrong. Best record in the league. Clay's coming back. That's on the horizon. He's talking about Christmas. Christmas is 6 weeks away. So
get your presents.
Oh my goodness. 10-1. It's happening now. You've got reinforcements on the horizon. Now's not the time to do that and give minutes to someone who doesn't deserve it. I'd be shocked. I think the play is that you keep him with the team and you hope that by game 60 he's better than Looney, and on those nights where you need to go big, you can play him 30 minutes a game and he's better than what Looney is. Looney played big minutes today and he did quite well. Yeah. So you just hope that with another 4 months of development he can get to that point, and if not, I don't think Steve Kerr is going to wait around and hold his hand, which is terrible because he's a number 2 overall pick, and took him ahead of a couple of guys who shall remain nameless that would have been better fits and are obviously right now better players. It's a really difficult situation, but I think that when push comes to shove, Steve Kerr is going to be faced with the decision to do something politically unpalatable or do something that affects the on-court product. And being 10-1, I don't think he's going to be prepared to affect the on-court product, because he's like 10-1. Okay, my best player is 33. My second best player is 32. My third best player is 31. Now's the time. We've got to do it. We have to do it right now. Make the most of it. And if Big Jim is the collateral damage, I think he just says he's the collateral damage.
Yeah, but $10 million worth of collateral damage.
It's not good because
It's
being
not
the number
good.
2 pick, and his contract is going to be big. So if you it's only going up as well. You're effectively paying more than the mid level, which we've been vocal on this podcast. Like, don't give a big man the mid level in free agency.
Yeah.
Paying more than the mid level over the same amount of time as some of these regrettable contracts to get a dude who's probably worse than all of the mid-level bigs and who you can't as easily bench. I think playing him in the G League is not a terrible idea because you can plan it out and you can say, all right, we're going up against, today they played Minnesota. Minnesota likes to have 2 bigs. It's like, Cat and Naz Reid or whatever. We're going to bring him in. We're going to say, from Monday to Thursday, you're with the Santa Cruz Warriors. We're playing on Friday night. So on Friday night, you're coming with us and you're playing. And then you're going back if we don't need you
You're just
again.
talking about a G League thing. But, like, that's...
But that's the level
a
of...
two-way player. But
Yeah, but I mean, like...
that's what he is.
Well, that's the situation, is that you kind of... Well, one of the worst big men in the league last year. You have to prove that you can be better. And it sucks that you're not getting the opportunity to prove that on an NBA court. Like some players do, play through the mistakes, whatever. But that's just the reality of being 19, 20 years old on a team that has genuine title aspirations. I think that the organization doesn't want him to be bad, obviously, but they will empower Steve Kerr to bench him.
Yeah.
And put, prioritize winning over development if that's what he deems necessary, which I think is what he will. He'll try and thread the needle, but if the needle is not getting threaded, I don't think he's going to fuck around and say, no, we need to give him 15 minutes a game. He's going to say, all right, Otto Porter off the bench, we're going small. There you go.
I am so excited to see what the rotation is in game 1 of Big Jim this season. I would love to see, is it Token starting? Or
Well, I want to see what it is in game 10 of Big Jim.
Yeah, okay. When he's like fully healthy.
When he's fully healthy, he's practicing 5-on-5. He's ready for games. He can play. He's got no minutes restriction. He can play how they can hide behind minutes restrictions. He's got a 15-minute restriction. That's why we only played him 12 minutes. Okay, makes sense. If there's no minute restriction and he's playing 12 minutes, then it's like, all right, well, obviously we know they're not happy with him. Obviously we know that he doesn't fit their plans, which he doesn't, because for the last 15 years, Draymond at the 5 has been the Warriors' best option.
Yeah. All right. Now, what have you seen this week in the NBA?
I want to talk about the Grizzlies, and I think a good entry point to this conversation is that Ja is really fucking good, and I think this is me going out on a limb. I know, but I think he's going to be an all-star. I think he's going to be an all-star this season. Currently, he's averaging 26, 5, and 7. He's still kind of got the mind-bending finishes inside, with sometimes streaky, but generally more improved 3-point stroke. He's taking pull-ups. He's taking more overall threes. So you hope that kind of comes together. He kind of... I've been watching a lot of Grizzlies this season. He reminds me of if young Russell Westbrook and current Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a child.
He's got those long arms of Shai.
And he's kind of herky-jerky, and he's kind of keeps you lots of fakes and up and unders, and he keeps the defender off balance, and he'll do a crazy rip through move, and then he's on the other side of the basket. And then he's got just the mind-bending athleticism that young Westbrook had, where he's if he he's kind of got what Miles Bridges has going, where if he gets one dribble and he's going towards the rim, the defender's all right, I'm out, because you don't want to end up where that's going.
I love, one thing I really like about watching Ja is that because he can go any direction, like you said. He's got the herky-jerky style like Shai Gilgeous, and he runs in, and he'll drive to the paint on whichever way it is, and he'll sort of tiptoe along the free throw line, and he does this thing where his body is facing sideways onto the rim, but at any point he could just jump up and do his little push floater. Yeah. But because he's so lethal from wherever it may be, he tiptoes the line, and for every step he takes on the free throw line, you're just shit, is this it? Is this the fake? And then if he does fake, he's got that step through where he can go up and he's just used his floater. And it's if you can just get in that situation, defense are petrified. And
he's so good at not only is he really good at the fakes, he'll fake you this way, then that way, it's an up, it's an under, it's a spin, and then it's in. He's so good at a shot fake into a pass, where he'll get inside and kind of up fake the big moves or the big. It doesn't even have to be a jump. The big just has to like come over, or he goes that way and fakes a pass out to someone on the 3-point line, and then bam, little wrap around inside and finds like Brandon Clark or Steven Adams just standing there. He put up 30 something against Charlotte today. That was in what was a really fun game, and he just had like this kind of like moseyed on like ISO, got to the free throw line. Literally just like simple as anything, just like pull up, fake. John Conchar cuts base and he just whips it in. Big man who comes out to defend him on the switch, jumps, Conchar goes through, whips, bam, dunk. He's obviously really good. I think he's going to be an all-star. I'm going to be keeping my eye on if he can like maintain this level of play, because he really looks like he's made a jump, like the capital J jump. But I'm really curious about how good this Grizzlies team can be and where they go going forward, because they're obviously pretty good now. They're in the playoff spots. They're 6-5. They've got. I feel like we've talked about it heaps. They've got so many role players. That's like fun.
Don't mention the Z word.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the 10th to 17th pick?
Yeah. No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say
he does look good though.
He does look good. They've got all these role players. We've been saying consolidation trade alert for for a while. Even without that, they're good now. But with Dylan Brooks being injured, hopefully like not taking too long to work his way back.
He looked good today.
He did look good today. Jaren Jackson is really struggling, really struggling, and Desmond Bane, who essentially plays Dylan Brooks' position and role, looking really good to start the season. They're good right now. You'd hope that they can continue getting better, but it just feels like there's something coming here. Whether it's a trade or whether it's Jaren Jackson, clicking into gear, and he just averages like 20 and 8, and he bangs in 3 threes a game for like 2 months. I just feel like there's something simmering, bubbling in the pot with this team, and I wonder. Do you think that they'll be in the playoffs? Do you think they'll be in the playoffs?
Yes, because every single superstar right now is struggling apart from Steph and Ja. So, yes, right now, of course, they're in the playoffs, but, I'll just love to see, Damian Lillard start hitting some shots and something like that, and the Lakers to put it together, which might not happen.
Yeah.
Yes, right now they are. Would I say it by the end of the season? Probably, because Ja's looking like an all-NBA level player, and if you've got one of those all-NBA level players, you're probably going to be in the playoffs. But just to go back to your point about how the role players are really popping off, I've been really impressed with Desmond Bane, because I thought this was going to be D'Anthony Melton coming in while Dylan Brooks was still not in there, right? And I think if a trade does happen, a consolidation trade to get Bradley Beal, for example, it's going to be with Dylan Brooks inside it. And I'm just like, okay, who's going to be the odd man out who stays on the team out of Melton and Desmond Bane? And I thought it was going to be Melton. I picked him up in fantasy early on because I'm like, he's going to get those 10 games early and he's just going to cruise through, and he's always going to be the option, whether it be backup point guard or starting next to Ja. Desmond Bane just looks way better than I thought he was going to be, and he's so much better than last year, and he's fucking built.
He's jacked.
He's gotten so much stronger over the offseason.
He's on the Dylan Brooks bodybuilding workout.
Is Dylan Brooks
Dylan Brooks is huge.
Yeah,
he's not ripped, but
maybe it's that chicken down in Memphis.
That is dangerous territory.
Dylan
Brooks is
Dylan
Brooks is strong. Dylan Brooks defenders bounce off him.
Let me just Google Dylan Brooks tits.
Yeah, he's got him. He has an extremely thick torso. Look at that. That's some eroticism for you. Talking about the thickness of the torso. So Bane is an interesting point because he has been really, really good. He's obviously was drafted last year as a bit of a flyer, he's a shooter. He's been heaps better this season, putting the ball on the ground, attacking off closeouts, running a couple of pick and rolls. Good defender. Dylan Brooks is obviously going to be the salary in a big trade. He's on $15 million. I think he's got 3 for 45, so it's a pretty tradable contract. You get him with a couple of role players and you can easily get to $25 million. Do you think that with Bane being so good right away that they would just trade Dylan Brooks anyway, not as part of like bringing a superstar, but as like
just to move him,
not to move him for the sake of moving him, but just be kind of like you're
like a value play.
A value play. You're a bit obsolete now because we've got someone who does exactly what you do, and he's on a rookie contract, and we can move you for like wing player X or big man X or like guard
but
X.
Is that like is it Jeremy Lamb or is it like
No, it's not. It's not Jeremy Lamb. It's like I don't know, like. I'm just spitballing, but someone like the D'Angelo Russell kind of realm where it's like
Miles Turner.
Yeah, like a Miles Turner. Someone who's got a bigger salary than Dylan Brooks, you'd still need to cobble, but it's definitely not like you're keeping his salary slot dry so that you can get an all-NBA level player. You kind of say, Jar's making an all-star, an all-NBA push. If we just upgrade, we've got Bane, who's as good as Dylan Brooks is right now. We just upgrade a different spot with Dylan Brooks. We're good to go, and we hope that Jaren Jackson stops shooting 29%. Jaren Jackson, another culprit of what's the number at the start of the field goal percentage.
It's pretty good right now, isn't it?
No, it's terrible. It'd be like mid-30s.
All right. Well, I've got it in front of me. Jaren Jackson Jr. shooting 36% from the field, but 35% from three.
Well, it wasn't always 35% from three. I can guarantee you that.
Well, I think now's the right time, Dante. You can tell them.
Well, sure. It's me bearing my soul to the entire Deep 2 audience. Sean, we've made a trade in our
We have a trade to announce.
We have a trade to announce. We've made a trade that's comprised completely of people who are juniors and people who have the suffix D, like DE apostrophe at the start of their name. So I'm trading you, Jaren Jackson Jr. and some other shit bloke, DeAndre Hunter, who's been terrible in fantasy. I'm like, DeAndre Hunter, grab a rebound. It's okay, you're allowed to.
I'm not going for rebounds.
You're allowed to grab a rebound. And you are trading me Wendell Carter Jr. and DeAnthony Melton. So we've got some big Memphis energy going on here.
We've been zoning in for our personal pursuits and for the podcast and to watch basketball. Because
DeAndre Hunter currently averaging less than 3 rebounds a game despite playing 30 minutes a game and being 6'9". That's neither here nor there.
I'm not going for rebounds.
Yeah, well, I am. So it's been extremely disappointing for me. What was I going to say?
We just traded the D's and the Jars.
Yeah, we traded. So we've. Yeah, I know. I'm just going to get ahead of this. I know that I'm trading you the best player in the draft.
You are putting this on the podcast.
Yeah. I know that I'm trading you the best player in the trade, and the NBA logic is
the NBA logic.
The team that gets the best player wins the trade usually. I know I'm giving up the best player. But I'm 0-3 because I made some bad choices on draft night, like throwing all of my mid-round eggs into the Patrick Williams.
As Zach Lowe would say, we on DEFCON 1?
Yeah, I'm on DEFCON. Get me someone who can get me like 14 and 8 and shoot 50% from the field. Wendell Carter Jr.
Wendell Carter Jr. sneaky like 22, 15 and 5 against Rudy Gobert.
And he actually he's playing most of his minutes with Mo Bamba. Like they're playing Orlando's playing them as like a twin towers. Gross. As like a twin but it looks alright.
I know, but
Wendell,
well,
that's the risk that I'm taking here is if like Okeke
yeah, but he's not gonna take if you're gonna knock someone out as Mo Bamba.
Well that's the thing. Is it Mo Bamba or is it Carter Jr.? It's less politically palatable for them for it to be Mo Bamba because they picked him.
No,
Carter Jr.
New front office. They didn't pick him.
True.
Yeah,
that's Rob Hennigan's problem.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So anyway, let
us know your thoughts on the socials at the Deep2 wherever you find us.
Who wins the trade? Well, if I can win a week of fantasy, I'll be happy because after finishing, I think the first year we did it, I finished second to you. And then the second year I finished like 4th, and I'm currently last because I've got no wins. And I'm playing Jackson this week, Jackson's team's pretty good, and I've played like 4 more games than him, and he's beating me. So, and he's got more games than me anyway. And Colin Sexton just tore his meniscus, and Patrick Williams is out for the season. So I'm not claiming that half of the guys I picked are putting up their worst possible output. And TJ Warren still hasn't come back. What's going on with that? I'm not, Morris twinsing myself and pretending to be a victim. All I'm saying is fuck.
All right. Well,
Fuck.
now that you've just had that soliloquy and we're officially in the weeds,
That was a big soliloquy.
let me read a tweet I said to you at the start of the Warriors Timberwolves game, and then I'll read you the top reply. So the tweet was just a quick one. As Steph goes against Minnesota Timberwolves backup point guard Patrick Beverley, is this part of the quote next 5 years unquote that are his #DubNation? And then I get a guy called Noah Minnesota reply
that
to
guy.
me. Pat Bev has been playing elite this year. Shut the fuck up, clown.
Yeah, put your fucking makeup on, put your fucking wig on, put your big red nose on, you fucking clown.
That clown who, Patrick Beverley had the next 5 years while playing for the Clippers. The Clippers didn't win anything, neither did Patrick Beverley.
Yeah. Well, all right. That's as good a point to leave it as any. But before we go, just a quick reminder to make sure that you follow us on all of our socials so you can keep up to date with our wonderful podcast, our engaging Instagram and Facebook content, and
Twitter.
the articles that we post on thedeep2.com. Can't believe it's that simple, including the most recent one, which was written by a friend of the pod, Aless, on the aforementioned Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. It was a really good read. He basically just goes through and kind of has an assess of where the Grizzlies are now and where they might be going big picture with Ja. So that's a really good read. So head over to thedeep2.com and give that a look.
Cool. Dante, I'll speak to you next week.